February. Hi, my name is Allie. Welcome to Mythic Melancholy. Today I am bringing you my February reading wrap up. I have 13 books to talk about today, and some of them were very good, some of them were kind of bland, and some of them were not so good. So let's just get into it, shall we? First up, I have The Stranger She Knew by Rosalind Stopes. This was a 2-star. This was not good. This was not good. I did not like this. Now, honestly, I can't say I expected to like this, but I did have hopes for it to be better than it was. So in this book, we follow an old woman, and she has had a stroke, so she cannot speak anymore, really. She can't do things like she used to be able to do, and she is now living in a nursing home, and this roommate moves in across the way, who is somebody that she thinks she knows, but she can't tell anyone about it because she can't speak, because nobody would believe her anyway. And that is one aspect of this book that I did think was done very well, is being inside of this main character's head. Felt very claustrophobic. You could feel everything she was feeling, what it was like to be trapped in her own body, and it was hard to read at times, that part of it. But then you get into the story, and we go back and forth between the past and the present, and by the end it felt so pointless. Why did I read this entire book to get to that ending? It was so bad. I kept waiting for something to happen. I kept waiting for there to be more, and then we don't even get, I would say, like a big reveal. It's more just like, okay, the book ends. I don't know why I read this. That's how it made me feel, so that's why it's 2 stars. Then we have An Optimist's Guide to Heartbreak, which I was really looking forward to. I did only end up giving it 3 stars. It was an enjoyable read, and I did like things about it, but overall, I just don't think it was the best romance. In this book, we follow a woman who is moving back to her childhood town. She's actually moving into the house that her best friend from childhood lived in, and that best friend is no longer alive. And she moves into this house, and she decides to get a job as a receptionist, and she gets this job at a auto repair shop that that best friend who is no longer with us brother owns. So there's some tension between the two of them, and there's banter, and that part is good. The grumpy sunshine dynamic there is so good, and that's probably why I got 3 stars, because the actual plot wasn't totally doing it for me, but the couple was fantastic. This is yet another one that had an unsatisfying ending, and part of the reason I couldn't enjoy this book as much throughout was I felt this goddamn ending coming. I knew it was coming, and it felt cheap. It just felt like a ploy at my emotions rather than something that like actually made me feel anything. It just felt like it was there to be like, oh my god, this happened, and feel emotions, and I didn't, because I was like, I knew this was gonna freaking happen, and I didn't want it to happen because it just felt cheap. It didn't feel like it pushed the story anywhere. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It felt like a cheap shot to me. And so I don't know if I will read the second. I might, just because this is a very short little duology, so I might read the second to see if it like redeems itself, but I don't like this kind of plot, and it didn't feel well executed here. I've got Trespasses by Louise Kennedy. This is a historical fiction set in the Troubles in Ireland, and it follows a woman who is kind of just stuck in life. She's living with her alcoholic mother, and she is a teacher at an elementary school, a Catholic elementary school specifically, and she also works at a bar. She meets a man who is married and starts an affair with him, and that's kind of the whole book is just following this woman about her life and then this affair that she has. It focuses a lot on that affair, but I wouldn't call this a romance novel. I don't know what I would call this. I gave this 3 stars. It was kind of a slog at times to get through. I did enjoy the kind of just feeling of constantly being in a cloudy day. Nothing feels very happy. This book feels quite depressing throughout, and I think it kind of fits the time and the atmosphere the author was going for, so well executed. But I don't know where this story was really going in general, and by the end I didn't hate the end of this one. This one I didn't hate the end of. I thought the ending was fine, but it didn't really do a whole lot for me. So although it wasn't bad, it also just wasn't really super good either. And the married man affair thing, the characters in this also aren't very likable, which is fine, but it was also frustrating because everyone's just making dumb choices and I don't like them. Alright, 4th book, and we're finally onto a book I really did enjoy, and that is Before Your Memory Fades, which is the 3rd in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. This was just as good as the previous 2. I loved it so much. I will read things in this series forever. I love it so much. This one isn't quite a 5-star for just one reason, in that it felt like it kind of recycled some of the sorts of storylines from the previous 2, and that I didn't love as much, but it still followed the cafe staff at different points and the stories were still good. It just felt a little repetitive. These are so good. I love them so much more than I thought I would, and the 4th one comes out, I believe, later this year in English. I couldn't be more excited. Then I read Project Hail Mary. This I gave 4.5 stars. It was pretty close to being a 5, but at times I was just almost skimming certain parts of it a little bit. I don't know if it's because there was so much science jargon or if I just wanted to know what was going to happen, but there's just a little something here that I can't quite give it a 5-star. This follows a man who is humanity's last hope, basically. He is on this spaceship. He wakes up out of a cold sleep to find that his 2 crewmates are dead, and he doesn't remember anything. He has no idea what's going on. He has to try and remember who he is, why he's here, what he needs to do to save humanity from extinction, basically. And the first part of the book was a little slow at times. I didn't really mind that, to be honest. And then we get this adorable alien friendship. He meets this alien from this other spaceship, and they find ways to be able to interact with each other and communicate with each other, and they just have the cutest friendship. It is so sweet. I was not expecting that because, you know, normally when there are aliens in books, it's not like that. In books, movies, aliens, it's not normally a 2 lonely species from different places meet and they just become best buddies. Like, that is not, I was expecting something horrible to happen for so long. And that is one thing about this book that definitely kept me feeling tense the whole time. Everything was just going well so much of the time, and I'm just sitting here like waiting. I'm like, something horrible is gonna happen. Something horrible is gonna happen. Oh, you know, I was so stressed, even though there wasn't really anything to be quite that stressed about at any point, and I was stressed. I would, however, have liked just a little bit more from the ending. That's another reason it didn't quite hit that 5-star mark. I liked the ending. There was nothing wrong with the ending. I just would have liked a little more. There were things I was curious about that I feel like it would have been better included for me to have some idea of what kind of happened there. Obviously, I can't say too much because spoilers, but I wanted just a little bit more from that ending. Then I read The Fine Print, which is all over Book Talk and BookTube and romance book world right now. This series is, because I think the last one just came out. I gave this one 3.5. I really did enjoy a lot of the characters and the banter and the romance, and it was just long. I think, and at times it felt kind of bland. So maybe if it was shorter, maybe if it gave me just a little bit more, it could have been a higher rating, but as it stands, this was 3.5. It still was worth reading. I don't know if I will read the rest of the series or not, because I think the novelty of the kind of gimmick here may have worn off. This one follows a woman who works at a theme park, and she's very upbeat. She is very peppy, and she ends up getting involved with the man who is now the director of the theme park, who is none of those things. He's very business-like. He's all about making money, living that capitalist lifestyle. And of course, you know, they have that immediate attraction, but they don't want to be attracted to each other. And then she ends up like changing his ways and all that. And I think that's why at times it felt a little bland. It almost felt more like a Hallmark movie with some spice. And I wasn't sure about that feeling, but it was still good, and the theme park aspect of it, the gimmick of them being at the theme park and talking about the theme park and designing stuff for the theme park was fun as well. Then I read Ice Planet Barbarians, and this is a 2.5 star, I would say. I didn't enjoy this, really. And I was very disappointed to not have enjoyed this. I expected so much more from this. People read this whole series. People love it so much. And I don't know why, if I'm being honest. I don't know why people love this so much. I don't get it. Good for you if you do, and if you get enjoyment out of it, then, you know, more power to you. Enjoy the things you can in life, but this was bad. This follows a woman who, just at the beginning of the book, she is kidnapped. She wakes up on a spaceship with a whole bunch of other women who are basically being trafficked. We don't know what they're being trafficked to, you know, what's going on, but they're in like a horrible situation. Like, it's disgusting in this cage they're in. It's gross. They're trapped. They're scared. One of them gets like sexually assaulted, and apparently like that's a thing that happens all the time, and it's rough going at the start of this book. And then they crash land on this planet, and our main character goes off to try to find help and meets the blue alien dude, and it is so like weird insta-lovey. And I don't actually always hate insta-love. I don't hate mating bonds. I don't have anything against those tropes necessarily, but I did not feel like they were done well here. It felt just weird. It felt weird. Like, she went through this, and then she meets this guy, and she's just like letting him go down on her and stuff, and like apparently loves him, even though they like can't communicate for like the first half of the book. She doesn't know anything about his species. I don't know, the way it was done made me feel weird. I just felt weird. And the thing is, it's like, I read a lot of like monstery romances and like weird romances. I've read other fated mates romances, and this felt weird. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Then we have the worst book I read this month, which is Tyrannosaurus Sext, which I read because I was doing my monster readathon thing, and 1.5 stars. It's not 1 star because it wasn't like super offensive or anything, but this was really bad. I think some of the other ones might be better, but this was incredibly short. It felt unfinished. It felt pointless. Even the dinosaur smut aspect that was supposed to just be like this ridiculous gimmick that was like just so out there, it was just dumb. It was so dumb. This basically had like 2 short stories in it, and in the first one, it's the one that the title is based off of, which is she meets a tyrannosaur because they're like met on a dating app or something, and she didn't know it's a tyrannosaur, that she's just fine with the fact it's a tyrannosaur, and then they like, the tyrannosaur gives her oral, and then it cuts off right as they would like actually do anything. So it didn't even commit. It didn't even commit to the tyrannosaur sex. If you're gonna write something this ridiculous, if it's gonna be this, if it's dino smut, okay, you gotta commit. You gotta commit. You gotta go all the way, because otherwise what is the point? Why even bother? Because it's such a dumb, ridiculous concept that is just there to be funny, basically. Then I read The Kraken Sacrifice, which got a solid 4-star. This was really good. I am still a sucker for Katie Robert. This one follows another woman in the demon bargain where she is basically auctioned off to one of the rulers of this world. This one happens to be the Kraken ruler, and it's really good. I really enjoyed the smut in this one. I would say that The Dragon's Bride, which was technically like the first one, I enjoyed the story a little bit more, the romance, and in this one I enjoyed the smut a little bit more. Although I did still enjoy the story, I didn't love these characters as much, or this kind of plot line to their romance quite as much. But overall, still really good, still loving these, still gonna read the next 2 or 3, however many there are when they come out. It was a good time, and yes, there were tentacles, and yes, I didn't mind. Then I read The Spite House, which I had an early copy of on NetGalley. This I gave 3.5 stars. It was good, but at times I just wasn't connecting with the story as much as I would like to. It was such interesting concepts in here. So basically this follows a father and his 2 daughters who have like ran away from their past, ran away from his wife. We don't know why, what's happened there as the story starts, but he takes a job because they are desperate for money. He takes a job that is basically, he's gonna live in this spite house and document any paranormal activity that happens, because the person who hired him is trying to prove that, you know, ghosts really exist, that things really happen in this house. So he's just there to document that, and it's a big payout, and he's gonna go for it because, you know, so many horror novels start that way. There's a desperate family, there's a big payout, they're gonna do it. The spooks start pretty much as soon as they're like actually in the house, but I felt a lot of the times we were pulling away from that, and it was so vibey and it was so creepy, and I wanted more of that, and we didn't actually spend as much time in that house dealing with those spooks as I would have liked. And the concepts were so interesting that were being brought up as we learned more about this family's history and why this dad also wanted to kind of take this job. There was a little more to it than just the money. And there were so many interesting concepts there, and I felt like we never really got to explore it. And by the end, it just kind of was like, well, that was a thing that happened. Like, I didn't even get enough spooks and spooky weirdness to enjoy like that just being what happened. I wanted to know more if it was gonna go, like, it almost felt like there should be a sequel. I need you to tell me more. Now, I did love the characters and I did enjoy the writing, and I think I would read more from this author. This was a very good debut, and I feel like this author has a lot of potential, and I think a lot of people will really enjoy this book, and I did enjoy it. I just wanted more out of it in places that I didn't get. Then I read The Mercies by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. This was really good. I gave this 4.5 stars. Again, not quite 5. Nothing this year seems to be hitting that 5-star mark for me. I don't know if I'm being too picky or if I just, I don't know. I feel like in the past I've given out those 5 stars like candy, and this year I am not doing that, so I'm not sure what's going on here. This takes place in 1617 and follows these people who live kind of in the middle of nowhere on this island, and a storm comes and basically kills all of the men that lived on this island. They're all out fishing, and the storm comes out of nowhere and just takes them all down. And so this island is left with only women to figure out how to live here. They do what they need to do to survive, and then this commissioner comes in and kind of changes everything, because he's very much, we need to be godly, we need to do things this way, and it gets pretty tense at times, and different women handle it differently. It kind of splits this village into 2 different kinds of women. I really enjoyed the explorations of womanhood in this book. It gives you this idea of what it means to be a woman, of what that meant in the past, of how different women handle things differently, and of when women try to have any power or independence or assert themselves in any way, men take it as a threat. Now, why was this not quite a 5? I think it's because it took me a while to get into. I was really unsure about it in like a good chunk of the beginning, and I was having trouble connecting with it. It took me a while to get into the writing. That might be because it's more historical fiction-esque, and I don't read a lot of things like that, so that might be more of a me thing. But it did take me that little bit to get into and really connect to, so I just can't give it a 5-star because of that. But it did leave me heartbroken by the end, and I had fallen in love with all these characters, and I felt so much for them, and I was so stressed and tense and upset, but in a good way. There's also a sapphic romance in here that I really enjoyed, and it definitely could be a 5-star for many people, and I would highly recommend this one. I think I would recommend anything by Kieran Millwood Hargrave, because I read The Deathless Girls and really enjoyed that one. That one also wasn't quite a 5-star, but for different reasons than this one wasn't. And neither of those had anything to do with the writing. The writing is fantastic. Kieran Millwood Hargrave knows how to pull at your heartstrings. And just read some Kieran Millwood Hargrave. I know I'm gonna read more. Then I read Show Us Who You Are. This was a 4-star, and it was a really solid 4-star. I really enjoyed this. I think because it felt a little bit more contemporary, and I don't always love contemporary middle grades. That might be part of why it wasn't a 5-star for me. This book follows Cora, who is such a fantastic main character to follow. I fell in love with her immediately. She is just such an amazing young girl, and the autism rep for her was done so well. I was so impressed with it. I felt like the message of hopefulness and of accepting yourself really came across with this character, and still the fact that those things can be hard to do and are a struggle at times, it was done very well. I cannot fault this book anything on its representation of autism. But it follows Cora and a couple things with this new friendship she's made, and then also with getting involved with this company who creates these grams, which are basically hologram versions of people who are still alive or who have died, and it's supposed to be an authentic version of them so that people don't have to grieve anymore. They can go see their dead relatives because there will be this version of them that just basically is them that they can go visit, but obviously they have to pay money to do this because this is a company, and it's very much taking advantage of grief. Cora felt her age here, and I really enjoyed watching her discover more about herself and realize things about this company and about life itself throughout this story, and it felt very real to how someone of her age might react to these sorts of things, especially someone her age who does have autism. It felt real. It felt right. It felt believable, which sometimes isn't the case, especially when people are writing about autistic people. So I definitely would recommend this one. Then I read The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, which is the second in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. I think I liked this one more than the first one, actually. It still got 4 stars. It still is certainly not a 5-star read for me, but I had a good time with this one. It read very, very quickly, and I think the reason I enjoyed this one a little bit more is it felt a little bit more cohesive. It felt like we were actually getting somewhere, doing something. It was a little less all over the place. I mean, it was still all over the place, and it still is more of the same as the first one, but this one I felt like I followed the story a little bit more, like there was more of a story. I won't really say anything more than that on this one because we will be doing our live show for the read along we are doing of this series. I'm not sure when exactly that is yet, but we will all discuss our thoughts in more detail then. And that is it. Those are the books I read in February. I hope you enjoyed. I think I wrapped some of those up better than others. It is what it is. Definitely comment down below if you've read any of these, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. I want to hear it all. Make sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more of my face, and I will see you in the next one.